Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Stephen and Oliver Show, which is now getting well known as the SOS podcast, which we're very happy about that. But, you know, it's our name, so sue us. Anyway, we've got a really interesting episode that Stephen's, back to the old ways, Stephen's come in the door and he's got an idea, and he's watched Wicked recently. For those of you who don't know, like me, it's a very popular film that was out around Christmas, still out now. Stephen's obviously seen it over Christmas, I think, and it has prompted the title of this podcast to be Love Your Differences. So, your idea, you need to start us off on this. What on earth are you going on about? All I know is there's a green person in it. That's about it.
I like the fact that normal service has been resumed. I like that. No, yeah, this one is it's quite painful, actually. And it has a serious side to it as well as a humorous side to it. And it really hit me quite hard when I was watching Wicked. I feel like they had the opportunity to really share a story there, and I think they didn't go far enough, in my opinion. And what I wanted to share with everybody is around how we treat people that are different. And different can be around colour of skin, different can be around tone of voice, different can be around the way people dress, different can be around the way they articulate, just different. They're someone that, I believe, many times we alienate those people, we treat them in a way that's not kind, and actually they have value to add. In many cases, they have value because they're different. Their differences make them unique. The fact that they come to the table slightly different, the way they look, the way they sound, the way they dress, they are unique. And so they have a uniqueness, as we all do as individuals. And I just wanted to look at this from two perspectives. One is I want people to embrace their differences. So people that are different, carry on being yourself. Do not feel like you need to conform because people are putting you under pressure to do that, because you've been alienated, because someone said something to you because of the way you look, etc. So there's that point of view. And then the other point of view is I want people that maybe that are treating someone in a way because they are different to fucking wake up. Because the reality is, just because someone's quiet and they're in the corner and they're not saying much doesn't mean that they haven't got something to say once they do say something. Because someone's got a green face and looks different from us, it doesn't mean that we should ridicule them and treat them meanly. Just because someone doesn't have the same shape or the same size or the same colour of skin, that we should treat them any differently. And it really made me think that obviously it was, it's been a book, it's been on stage, and now they've made it into a film. I just felt they didn't land that hard enough, and they could have in the movie a bit more for me. I think they kind of glossed over it, the way someone is treated because they look different and the way they're ridiculed. So that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, well, that's a really good one. I'm obviously familiar with the film in terms of having seen adverts for it and so forth. But it's interesting that there's a lot of film movie creators, studios, producers or whatever are being accused of the same thing in different lights, aren't they? Of just not going at anything that might offend. I want to go into the whole woke thing or whether it is or isn't, but there's just a lot of that, and a huge number of large franchises are really struggling at the minute for not doing that. And that it's a shame because they have a platform, don't they? And it's a shame. Certainly, that's the takeaway that you have from it. Obviously, not having seen it, I can't comment. But the point in general, absolutely valid. And one of the first things that immediately springs to my mind is to not kid ourselves and think that that any of us probably aren't innately judgmental, and it's okay. It's about how you go about that. And we were talking off camera about this one particularly coming on, and I'm not going to share the particular example, but I had a moment of it not that long ago, just from a visual on a video, and then the words that were spoken. There's a bit more to it than that, but initially I was judging that person on the look of and the sound. I've then done some further digging, and it's reinforced what I've thought. So my instincts were correct in terms of protecting myself from something else, but my initial ones were wrong because I might have been wrong. but I was allowing my instincts to kick in. Luckily, I've learned from this, and I explored, found out, checked into it, had a few words with people, and my fears were confirmed. But if I'd have not done that, then that would have been out of order, because I'd have been judging person on how they appeared, and then when they opened their mouth, the first few words they've said. So I've learned how I deal with that. I'm not ever going to say that I don't judge, because I think inside my mind I 100% do. But I believe I've learned quite well to come to terms with that quite quickly and realise that's not very helpful, A, to me, and B, to the other person. So that's the first thing that comes to mind for me, is you don't have to go with what your initial first impressions are, and don't kid yourself and others and say that you're not judgmental. The difference between it is perhaps you don't judge openly and outwardly to everybody else what you are thinking, or to that person, and that's good. That's good. If you don't share those backhanded comments or talk behind people's backs and so forth, great, that is fantastic. But I bet everyone listening to this has made some judgment calls on stuff. Like, take today when we record this, there's some big changes going on in America, and people are making judgments about that. Now, I think some of those judgments might be fair, but you don't know. And we're in a very difficult time at the moment, where people are making judgments, and opinions and judgments fall very close together, don't they? And casting them as fact. And that's very, very dangerous. And the second thing, to coin your point, with the second point you made, if you are treating somebody differently because of the way they look, sound, and so forth, you're a bully. Doesn't matter what level. There's really bad bullying, but there's sort of lower level bullying. It's still bloody bullying, and that's not okay. Never has been, never will be. And I would say, what are you compensating for if you find that need to do something like that? And unfortunately, we have worked with businesses where this sort of stuff goes on. And there's always the person doing the bullying, as it were, often, I would say always, but I'm going to just disclaim with often, isn't doing so well in either their work performance or outside of life. So I think that the throwback there to people would be, just challenge yourself as to why you're doing it.
Yeah.
You know, it's what are you trying to achieve would be the first thing that comes to my mind. So yeah, that certainly started me off on a tangent I wasn't expecting this afternoon. But now you've heard me sort of give my 2 pennies worth from it, from not having been triggered by the movie and just general experiences. Has anything else come to mind for you?
Yeah, because I guess I then put myself in the work environment and thought about what I'd seen over, the last few years, and very much, how people are being treated and how that makes them feel. And one of the things I thought about was, then people then isolate themselves. So, and they end up being quite reclusive.
Yeah.
And then they don't want to talk as much, or they don't want to put their point of view over as much. So in the workplace, it can be very, very damaging. And it's so easy, isn't it? We have one mouth, 2 eyes, and 2 ears. But it's so easy, isn't it, with our eyes to judge based on what we see. And then it's so easy to judge with our ears based on what we hear. And it is a shame, really, because sometimes it's about taking that step back, isn't it? And thinking about things from a different perspective. And I think that's what this is about for me. It's like taking that step back if you're the person that's judging. And then also, I want to shine a light that the people that are being judged can hold up and know that actually keep being yourself. Because, it's also forms a part of being authentic. You may look different because that's you, that's your authenticness, that's your right. I'll just mention something now which is very controversial, but I want to mention it because, people with tattoos. I can't even tell you the number of employers, that I have seen that have judged someone because they have tattoos. They've absolutely judged them because they have tattoos. They've decided that's the type of person they are because they've got tattoos. And that's just one example. Racism happens because someone looks at someone and believes they're different to them and they're in a minority. So that means I'm going to treat them that way. And so I want people to really open their minds and their hearts and think about, do I sometimes judge based on what I see? Do I sometimes judge before I've really heard? Do I judge then when I hear the tone of someone's voice? Do I judge because of what someone's actually wearing or what they've got on their skin? And I really, that's where it comes from for me. And I want to open this up because I want people to, one, carry on being themselves. I think that's really important. This podcast is all about helping people. And if one person from this thinks, oh, right, I'm going to continue being me, if that gives someone the confidence to continue being themselves, then, this podcast has worked. Two, if someone that stops and thinks, gee, that's me. Wow, I haven't really thought about it like that. But I've 100% judged someone because they've been different or haven't given someone the opportunity to put their point of view across. Another example. So a really good friend of mine has not long graduated with a first. Okay. This person looks a certain way and is treated a certain way because of the way that they look really badly. But this person is well educated, is well informed, and has so much amount of knowledge to give. But they're judged because of the way that they look. And I'm not saying for 1 minute people need to walk around with a resume on their chest of what they've achieved so people take them seriously. But I'm just using that as an example. That person is judged because of the way they look and the way they dress.
Yeah. No, it's a really powerful one as well. And I think just picking up on specifically the tattoo example and the ones just like it, just because you don't like tattoos doesn't mean that is a problem for that individual. It doesn't mean that they then come with a whole host of baggage, or just because someone you've known did a bad thing and has tattoos, you don't need to, put that on every single tattooed person that you see. I'll put my hands up. I'm not a big lover of tattoos, but it's not going to impact me. What I want to know is what the person's like. One of my closest friends has got tattoos all up his arms. It makes no bloody difference. I still don't like them. We have some private jokes about them and so forth, but it makes him no less of a person. He's no more valuable to me. I've just got another thing to banter with him about, I suppose, for want of a better word. So there's a very different thing about not liking something and then letting that influence your decision making, whether that be professional or personal. The second thing that also then triggers is things like autism, the spectrum, Asperger's and so forth gets a lot of traction now, doesn't it? A lot more attention than it used to. But I don't personally believe that it's that new. I think lots of people have struggled with that. ADHD, all of these things kind of not packaged into one. I don't mean it like that, but they're all part of the same sort of conversation. And in the school environment in particular, it's now being recognised that people just aren't set up for those environments, and that where you would consider somebody thick, they're not thick. They just don't work in the way that the school system enables. I've got a perfect setup at home to describe this. I have a son who's incredibly smart, but never worked with the academic side very well. He managed to struggle through his GCSEs and get really good ones, to be fair, but A-levels was too far, and that lasted about 3 months. My daughter, she's smashing it at university because it just works for her. But no one would look at my son and think he was thick. They would understand that he needs to be doing stuff that's more with your hands, more manual. He wants to be outside. He's not good at sitting and listening and so forth. But when I was certainly at school, I'd just be considered thick. I wasn't very academic. I was very sporty, luckily, and I kind of got away with it that way. So that's another thing. Things are starting to change. And if you feel things aren't right for you or you don't fit into a certain thing, that's actually okay. But don't be quiet. Try and look for people that maybe might seem to have similar interests in you. It's not easy. I'm not going to sit here and say that that's easy, but the first thing that is easier than that is to recognize that how you feel is how you feel, and it's okay. Depending on where that thinking is taking you, we don't need to do anything sort of that are unhealthy or unhelpful for yourself. So in those situations, there are people out there to talk to. But in general terms, if you've got a feeling about your workplace, stick with it. Raise those concerns, and if you're not getting the traction, consider whether it's the right place for you. It's a really important thing. And the final bit that comes to my mind with this, with employers, I don't know how many times we have to talk about this sort of thing, but employees are probably in most businesses your most expensive resource or your most valuable investment. However you want to put a half glass full or half glass empty approach to it, doesn't really change. They cost a lot. And if you're not tapping into the people who are deemed quiet, bit weird, don't dress how you'd want, have tattoos or crazy haircuts and so forth, you have no idea the untapped potential you've got. Because if you take what I was talking about earlier with ADHD, autism and so forth, there are some incredibly smart people who just don't conform to the ways that we would like them, or some people would like them to, but actually have incredible amounts to give, but they're not going to volunteer it. For whatever reason, you're going to have to coax it out of them, and you do that by being nice, friendly, approachable, and communicate. You don't do it by ridiculing them and telling them, well, they should do this and they should do that, and this is ridiculous, or what have you. That is never going to get anything positive out of anybody at any time. So they're the three things that sort of come to my mind. This is your piece. So is there any sort of final bits that you would like to take from that? And
I would just like to say, the title of the podcast is Love Your Differences. So I want people that feel that they are different to love that and don't let go of that, and don't let anyone tell you that you need to conform. And then those of you that are out there that this has hit a nerve with, where you think, oh, I have judged 100%, I want you to just think about it and think about how you can treat that person differently. And everyone listening to this podcast will know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a feeling. And I want you to really dig deep on this one, because I think it's a very serious subject, especially when you think about neurodiversity as well, and you throw that into the mix. People do sound differently. People articulate differently. People look different. People behave different. And all of these things can be used to alienate someone and not listen and not value them as people. We all deserve to be valued, regardless how we look, the colour of our skin, how we dress, what's important to us, how we sound, how we articulate, how we come across. We should all be valued.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I know I kind of said I'll give you the last word, but I'm going to renege on that, because one of the things that I've thought about, and this, I don't know if this would always be appropriate every time, so this is said with a bit of caution, but if you are one of the people that's judged, and depending on how comfortable you are with how bad the judgment call was, to actually go to someone and say, do you know what? I need to admit something to you. I judged you unfairly. I judged you harshly. That is ballsy. And that will build so much respect from that individual, handled in the best way. That could really completely 360 that relationship and completely transform it, by you just being honest and saying, do you know what? I know what I've done here. I'm not very proud of it, but I've judged you for these reasons. I wanted to tell you that. I also wanted to tell you that I know that was crap of me, and I want to see if we can make amends, or words to that effect. That's a big step, but I would love to see somebody who has recognised that in themselves to just be honest, admit to it, and see if you can move forward with that individual or group of people, whatever it might be. Because honestly, that is incredible if you can do that. I don't think it's going to be for everyone, but I just wanted to put it out there because there's a real opportunity. If you're genuinely feeling like, oh shit, that really is me, there is an opportunity, there is redemption in honesty. I'm a big believer in honesty. I'm a big believer in no matter what you've done, there is redemption's a strong word, isn't it? But there is an opportunity to turn it around in almost all cases. I can think of one or two extremities where maybe that's not the case, but in the main, that it's always going to give you a better chance, shall we say. So I just wanted to put that in there as a sort of pre-final thought, but I'll let you have the final thought.
And what I would just say, just to add on to that, is imagine if you could do that, how you'd leave that person feeling. The power of that. Yeah, let's leave it on that note because it's really powerful. Imagine how you could leave someone feeling if you had the confidence to go to them and say, look, I misjudged you and I'm really sorry. I didn't treat you the way I should have treated you. I judged you, and I want to tell you that because that person will go away and just feel amazing.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. really good stuff. So I hope everybody has enjoyed, is probably not the word I'd use. I think they found that informative and useful. As always, if it's triggered anybody for any reason, both I and Stephen are more than happy for you to reach out to us and have a chat. So until the next one, bye-bye.